HarperCollins presents The Grand Tour by Agatha Christie. Introduction by Matthew Pritchard. Read by Fenella Woolgar and Matthew Pritchard.
Introduction, written and read by Matthew Pritchard. By an extraordinary coincidence, it was 20th of January 2012 when I sat down to begin writing the introduction to my grandparents' participation in the British Empire exhibition mission, known as the Grand Tour, which my grandmother Agatha Christie brought so vividly to life in the letters and photographs she sent back to her family. The tour left on 20th of January 1922, exactly 90 years ago from the time I first wrote this. I called my grandmother Nima, presumably a first childish attempt at grandma, and through force of habit I will use this family name in this piece, although of course the events she chronicled took place many years before I was born. We have to be grateful that these wonderful letters have survived at all. It has been a continual frustration to me, in browsing through family memorabilia, that there are quite a few lovely letters from well-known and not so well-known people to Nima, but far fewer of her own letters, which by definition are in the hands of the people to whom she wrote. Fortunately, in this case, however, her mother, to whom she wrote the most frequently, did keep the letters. When she sadly died 3 or 4 years later, presumably Nima reclaimed them, for they have survived with the rest of the material left by what was, I can promise you, a prolific letter-writing family. As you will see, it was a marvellous bonus to read all the letters for the first time a year or two ago, to see the brief addresses, and to leaf through the old black-and-white photographs painstakingly pasted into a couple of old photograph albums. It goes without saying that the world we live in has changed out of all recognition in those 90 years. Some would say particularly the places visited on the Empire Tour: South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and Canada. Not only have the countries changed, but the way we communicate, the way we do business, the way we behave as families, indeed the whole social environment in which people like my grandparents existed has changed so much that it is almost unrecognizable. I think some of the circumstances surrounding the tour and the people involved would probably have been regarded as fairly eccentric even by their contemporaries, but even so, I think the changes are still very remarkable. For instance, apart from my grandparents, the chief character concerned, one Major E.A. Belcher, whose last job before initiating this tour was controller of the supplies of potatoes, was obviously a seriously eccentric and difficult man, whose unpredictability and inefficiency sorely tried my grandparents throughout the whole tour. One suspects that his friends and colleagues must have breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that he planned to be out of the country for 10 months. Certainly, however, somebody retained some confidence in him, for the expenses of the trip were considerable: 4 to 7 people's upkeep for 10 months, minus a month's holiday for my grandparents, free passage on ships all the way round the world, free internal travel in each of the countries, not to mention the fees paid to Belcher and my grandfather Archie. At the end of this book I have recorded some evidence about the 1924 British Empire exhibition. But at the end of the day, who are we to complain? We have gained a charming, perceptive, and unconsciously revealing document concerning life shortly after the First World War, written by an author whose gift for storytelling remains second to none from that time to this. It is worth dwelling for a while on communication. The only methods of communication used by members of the tour appear to be letters or the occasional, necessarily brief telegram. Not only no emails, but no telephones, in other words, no immediate form of communication which, for instance, Nima could use to be reassured about the well-being of her 2-year-old daughter Rosalind. Letters had to travel by the same means as the tour, by ship, and it appears that in either direction they took weeks or months to arrive, although within its own limitations the system worked very well. Even locally, communications were difficult, which made the keeping of itineraries and timetables challenging, to say the least. Worse, the difficulties of long-distance communication meant Nima and Archie knew before they set out that they would, in essence,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?